Jason Miller had never considered how fragile life was until the morning of July 14, 2019. It was supposed to be an ordinary day, the kind of day he had seen hundreds of times before. Jason was 35, a graphic designer living in Chicago, working long hours for a tech company he had outgrown but tolerated for stability. He woke at 6:30 a.m., his alarm blaring softly, and followed the routine he had built over years: shower, coffee, check emails, grab his backpack, and leave for the train that would take him downtown. The streets were bustling, summer sun glinting off the glass skyscrapers. He walked past street vendors and cyclists, barely noticing the vibrant energy of the city. His mind was occupied with the mundane, a project deadline, a meeting he had been dreading, and an email from a client who was impossible to please. Jason had lived most of his adult life in the forward motion of responsibility, almost never stopping to breathe, to notice, or to reflect. As he crossed the corner of State and Monroe, a sudden crash startled him. A delivery truck, its brakes failing, skidded uncontrollably toward the crosswalk. Jason froze. Time slowed in that instant. People screamed. The truck swerved at the last second, narrowly missing him by mere inches. He stumbled backward, heart pounding, shaking in disbelief. Around him, chaos erupted. Honking horns, shouting pedestrians, the screech of tires still echoing in his ears. Jason's legs trembled as he realized what had almost happened. He had been moments away from being crushed, and yet, somehow, he had survived. In the days that followed, the near-death experience clung to him like a shadow. He replayed the event endlessly in his mind: the angle of the truck, his hesitation at the crosswalk, the way a cyclist had nudged him out of the way. Each detail became a thread he could not untangle. The randomness of survival terrified him, and yet, it fascinated him. Before the accident, Jason's life had been defined by routine and predictability. He had spent years climbing a career ladder that no longer interested him. He had relationships that were convenient but unfulfilling. He had hobbies he had abandoned for the sake of efficiency. Life had been a series of checkboxes, each completed for external validation, for stability, for the illusion of control. The accident disrupted all of that. It forced him to confront the fragility of existence, the thin line between life and death, and the arbitrary nature of fate. For the first time, Jason asked himself questions he had never dared before. What do I truly want? What matters most? How can I live fully, not just survive? The answers were not immediate. They were uncomfortable, demanding, and often contradictory, but he could no longer ignore them. Jason began small. He spent evenings walking along the river, noticing the reflection of sunlight on the water, listening to birds he had never noticed before. He started to journal, writing without a plan, allowing his thoughts to flow unfiltered. He reflected on relationships he had neglected, friendships that had grown distant, and passions he had shelved. He allowed himself to feel joy, fear, grief, relief, all without judgment. Weeks turned into months, and Jason's perspective began to shift. He realized that survival was not merely a matter of luck, but a responsibility. To live, he needed to live intentionally, to prioritize authenticity, connection, and meaning over convenience, money, or superficial success. He left his corporate job quietly, without fanfare, and pursued freelance graphic design work that allowed him freedom, creativity, and flexibility. The shift was gradual but profound, reshaping his understanding of what it meant to live well. He reconnected with friends he had ignored, nurtured old passions like photography and hiking, and dedicated time to volunteering at local community centers. Every choice became intentional, every moment an opportunity to engage fully with life. The near-death experience had altered his perception permanently, infusing everyday actions with significance he had never recognized. Jason's story became one of transformation, from routine and complacency to mindfulness and purposeful living. The accident, random as it was, had forced him to confront the choices he had ignored for years. It had taught him the fragile beauty of existence and the importance of valuing every heartbeat, every encounter, every opportunity to connect and create. Months passed, and Jason Miller's life had shifted in ways he could never have predicted. The near accident had left a scar not only on his body, but on his consciousness, a deep awareness of the fragility and unpredictability of life. He realized that every moment, no matter how ordinary, held the potential to change everything. This realization became the guiding principle of his new existence. Jason began to restructure his daily life around mindfulness. He intentionally slowed down, noticing the sensations of walking, the rhythm of his breath, the subtle changes in light and color around him. Where once he had walked through the city absorbed in screens and deadlines, he now paused to observe, to listen, to connect. Street musicians, the smell of fresh bread from corner bakeries, the laughter of children, all became vivid experiences, small reminders that life was unfolding in real time, and he was present to witness it. His work as a freelance designer took on a new dimension. Rather than chasing clients solely for income, he sought projects that resonated with his values, campaigns promoting sustainability, non-profit organizations, and creative projects that inspired people. Each assignment became an expression of intention, a way to align his skills with a purpose larger than himself. Money was no longer the ultimate measure of success. Fulfillment, creativity, and impact became the yardsticks by which he measured achievement. Jason also explored personal passions he had neglected. He returned to photography, capturing moments that spoke to him, a street scene, a reflection in a puddle, the candid expression of a stranger. Hiking became a ritual, offering solitude, challenge, and communion with nature. Each peak reached, each trail explored, became a metaphor for overcoming inertia and embracing possibility. These pursuits were not hobbies. They were practices in awareness, resilience, and intentional living. Relationships, too, were transformed. Jason reconnected with friends he had lost contact with, seeking depth over frequency. Casual acquaintances faded naturally, replaced by meaningful bonds built on mutual respect, empathy, and authenticity. He found himself drawn to people who shared his values, who encouraged reflection, growth, and openness. Romantic relationships, once approached with caution and convention, became spaces of mutual discovery, understanding, and vulnerability. He no longer sought perfection or external validation, but presence, honesty, and emotional resonance. The psychological impact of his near-death experience remained, but Jason learned to integrate it rather than suppress it. He sought therapy, attended mindfulness workshops, and studied human psychology to better understand the ways trauma shapes perception, behavior, and decision-making. Survivor's guilt, once a shadow haunting his days, was reframed as motivation, a reminder to live fully and meaningfully, to honor life by contributing positively to the world around him. Jason also felt a calling to share his story more widely. He began speaking at schools, community centers, and corporate workshops about the importance of presence, intentionality, and resilience. His narrative was relatable. An ordinary person confronted with a moment that could have ended everything, who then chose to embrace life with clarity, purpose, and gratitude. Audiences were captivated by the honesty, the vulnerability, and the profound insights he shared. In his talks, Jason emphasized small, practical steps, noticing the world around you, cultivating gratitude, making conscious choices, and investing time in relationships that matter. He stressed that while accidents are random, how one responds to them is a choice that can redefine the trajectory of one's life. His story resonated because it was real, raw, and universally applicable. Over time, Jason's life settled into a rhythm that balanced reflection, action, and connection. He continued to live in the city he loved, yet no longer in the rush of his former life. He traveled intentionally, seeking experiences that challenged him, broadened his perspective, and connected him to humanity in its many forms. He volunteered regularly, mentoring young designers and supporting community initiatives. He cultivated a home environment that was calm, nurturing, and expressive of his personality, filled with art, books, and plants that reminded him of growth, life, and renewal. Even ordinary days were now imbued with meaning. Breakfast became a ritual, a moment to savor flavors and textures. Commuting was transformed from a chore into a period of observation, reflection, and learning. Encounters with strangers were opportunities for empathy and connection. Jason's perception of time itself changed. He no longer rushed, for he understood that the moments lived with awareness were richer, fuller, and more precious than those spent in distracted motion. Jason's transformation extended beyond personal fulfillment. It influenced those around him. Friends, colleagues, and strangers alike were inspired by his intentionality, resilience, and openness. He became a subtle force of change, encouraging others to notice, to reflect, and to act in ways that prioritized meaning over mere obligation. His life became evidence of the power of conscious living, a testament to the potential for ordinary individuals to embrace extraordinary awareness after encountering the fragility of existence firsthand. In reflecting on the accident, Jason never dismissed its randomness. He acknowledged that he had been extraordinarily fortunate, saved by a combination of timing, circumstance, and chance. Yet he also recognized the responsibility embedded in survival. Being spared was not merely a gift, it was a mandate to live authentically, to engage meaningfully, and to inspire positive change in others. This sense of duty became a guiding principle, informing every decision, every action, and every relationship he cultivated. Years later, Jason's story continued to evolve. He wrote a book detailing his experiences, blending narrative storytelling with reflections on mindfulness, intentional living, and resilience. He traveled to speak at conferences internationally, connecting with audiences who were themselves seeking meaning, purpose, and perspective. He maintained his creative work, producing designs and photographs that communicated beauty, emotion, and narrative depth. His life became a tapestry of experience, intention, and human connection, each thread woven with care and awareness. Through all of this, Jason remained humble. He understood that the accident had been a catalyst, but the ongoing work, living intentionally, cultivating mindfulness, fostering relationships, and contributing positively, was the true measure of his journey. He had been given a second chance, and he embraced it not with arrogance or hubris, but with gratitude, humility, and determination. Jason Miller's story is a reminder that life can change in an instant, that ordinary decisions, random accidents, and unforeseen events can have profound consequences, that survival is not only a matter of chance, but also a call to live fully, consciously, and intentionally, and that the human spirit, when awakened to the fragility and beauty of life, is capable of extraordinary transformation.